Hello, and welcome back to Archetype Builds. This is a channel where we take an archetype, usually kind of a paragon or stereotype from fantasy or fiction, and we show you how to build it in your D&D character. Today is a video that I have been working on for quite a long time. We're going to be talking about how to play a Speedster in your games. Now, I was working on this build for months and months, and the issue I kept running into was this. Going really fast is definitely something you can build for in D&D, but there's not a lot of payoff for that. Speed doesn't help you to damage enemies, support allies. It doesn't even necessarily help you sneak into places unawares or overcome obstacles. Speed in and of itself is not going to translate into crossing large gaps or closing distance between enemies to fight them. There are oftentimes so many things that speed can't do in the game that it is such a waste to invest a lot of resources in creating a very fast character. This is the main challenge, right, behind this build and why I didn't release this video for such a long time. However, there are a couple different payoffs available. One is to grab the Ashardalon's Stride spell. And I really liked this idea, and I went to go workshop a build around Ashardalon's Stride. And I ended up creating something that was extremely similar to D4's Ashardalon Strider, which is a build that he has on his channel. Can I put a card to another channel? Let's see. Guess you can. So his Ashardalon Strider is fantastic, and when you think about playing the Flash as you see it in TV, I think probably go watch his video. It's a really incredible build. It's very primarily wizard and uses that higher level spell slot to upcast Ashardalon Stride and transmute it into lightning damage, which is perfect for the Flash and doing all that lightning stuff. And I think if that is your fantasy, probably go in that direction. The thing that I didn't like about Colby's build is I didn't like being a full caster. I didn't like being so reliant on spells for a character who oftentimes is just portrayed as running fast. And I also didn't really like the amount of mechanics required in order to kind of use that forced movement to bounce enemies around, and then it's like, into what, right? You just sort of become, even though you are still doing well, you are still not a top-tier damage dealer or support or frontliner or anything like that, right? You kind of are still in this weird space in the party I didn't know where to put. So, although I love the Ashardalon Strider build, I can't just recreate it for a video, and I wasn't entirely satisfied with it as an encapsulation of the Speedster. And then, from the heavens, descended yet another D&D YouTuber. Treant Monk's Temple posted a video for me this morning about this team comp they developed around spike growth. Now, the headline of the video is, Spike growth allows you to do 1,000+ damage, and he was going to walk us through how they did that. The crux of their plan was that they had 3 different characters, all collaborating together to get this combo off. And there was one person who would lay down the spike growth, one person who would cast haste, and then they had a runner. And that runner grapples a target, right? Grabs onto them and pulls them, and uses that pull to drag them through spikes. And so they want to increase their movement speed so that they can run them through the spikes several times and get as much damage out of it as they possibly can. And finally, I realized this is what the Speedster is for. You grab a Speedster who can grapple a target and drag them, and you go as fast as you possibly can, and you shred your enemies. Put them through the cheese grater manually, right? Hold their face into it as you go. So this is what we're going to be building today. Now, I have to hurry because Treant Monk said that next week he will reveal their build for each of these 3 characters. And I want to get this out as soon as I possibly can, so that people are able to kind of speculate on those builds and watch this video before it comes out. So thank you, Colby. Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate your videos. They have helped inspire today's Speedster build. So the plan is grapple and grapple consistently, move quickly, especially in a burst Nova turn. Plan on having spike growth and haste cast by other people, right? I'm also going to say that for today's purposes, you've got a wizard probably to cast the haste. They're going to go ahead and hit you with a long strider before combat starts as well, right? So we can outsource these elements of the combo to other people. This is a multi-person combo build, but we are building the core, the one that is everything is getting cast on and that is doing the action. Okay, here we go. So for our race, we know what Chris's runner did for their race. We know that they went Tabaxi, and they have a very, very good reason for doing that. Tabaxi are going to get an ability, Feline Agility, that allows them to double their movement speed for a turn. This actually regenerates on turns where you don't use any movement, so it's even more resilient than something like once per short rest or proficiency bonus per short rest. It's possible to do this sort of every other turn in combat, although I imagine you probably wouldn't want to. This is going to give us a big burst, and I think if you're thinking about this Speedster as someone who is connected to like a speed force the way that the Flash is, this is kind of their first inkling of that, right? They've got their normal 30 feet of walking speed, and then, you know, lightning crackles and they can zoom, like double their speed.
It's okay.
Because we are going to be grappling, we need a good athletics check. I looked at a couple different options for how we could arrange to grapple with dexterity or grapple with wisdom or grapple with... But at the end of the day, I think it is too much of an extension from the build. I know. It's like you want your Speedster to be the most dexterous possible, right? You want them to be incredibly, incredibly fast. Fast to initiative, fast on sleight of hand. You want them to be making the dexterity throws, saving throws all the time. But listen, this is just going to be kind of generally a physical build. This is someone who cares about strength, dexterity, and constitution, and unfortunately, they care about strength most of all. So, like Barry says in the Flash show, the lightning gives you abs.
Lightning gave me abs.
You are getting strength from this speed force. It is bulking up your muscles and your body. That's going to be our number 1 stat. Feel free to take dexterity as your second most. It is mostly for flavor. It's going to boost your armor class, of course, and then constitution as well, you know, to be a resilient person. You are going to be physically in range of enemies, potentially taking opportunity attacks, so you need some health to get by on. So our very, very strong Tabaxi is going to take their first level in Barbarian. This is going to give you access to a lot of the weapons and proficiencies and stuff like that. The other thing you're going to get from Barbarian is unarmored defense. And indeed, we are not going to be wearing armor almost our entire character's lifetime. You can be in a tracksuit, you can be in a little Hermes, kilt and toga, whatever you want to do, you're not wearing armor. So this is going to give you armor class equal to 10 plus your dexterity. So if we have maybe a +3 in that, that's good. And plus your constitution, we could probably sneak out with like a +2 there. So we've got probably a 15 armor class. No rule against us holding shields, and that we're only going to need 1 free hand to do what we're doing. So go ahead and grab a shield. You got a 17 armor class at level 1. The other thing we're getting from first level Barbarian, of course, is Rage. Rage is going to be a critical part of our speed effect. So,
Ooh, yeah, I feel that.
Here's how I want you to think about this. In the Flash, they say that when you move really fast and you punch harder. It is a a translation between momentum and strength, right? Momentum and the force of your movements. Rage is when you are just vibrating so fast that you get even stronger, right? You're making these strong athletic grapples before they even have a chance to react. You've got your rage to activate, you've got your feline agility to activate, you've got different kind of modes to go into Speed Force. I also think this plays well to like what most speedsters have as a weakness, which is if they're surprised, if you catch them unawares, they don't have time to like activate their swiftness, right? They're not in bullet time all the time. They have to sort of actively go into that mode, and that's your rage and your feline agility. From rage, we're going to get advantage on our strength checks and strength saving throws. We are also going to have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage for what it is worth, and then we can add strength to our melee weapon attacks. We probably aren't going to be doing a lot of melee weapon attacks, as just a disclaimer. That's not really part of the plan. But advantage on strength checks and strength saving throws means that when you grapple, you do so with advantage. At first level, your proficiency bonus is 2. Make sure you grab proficiency in athletics, and then we're going for a maximum strength that we can, right? So we'll go ahead and take a 16 there. So we are adding +5 with advantage. Most of the time, this should be successful, and this is going nowhere but up. At first level, remember, first level, no one has spike growth, right? Your party members don't even have it. But hypothetically, if they did, you could grapple someone with your action and then feline agility to drag them 30 feet, right? Because when you're grappling a target, your speed is halved. But you're using feline agility to cancel that out. So you're going 30 feet across the spikes, 2d4 per 5 feet of movement, average of 2d4, about 5 damage. So that means 30 feet times 5 divided by 5 is going to be 30 damage at level 1 with this technique. We're going to go ahead and take second level in Barbarian as well. This is going to give us Danger Sense and Reckless Attack. The Danger Sense is mainly this fun little, like, being able to leap out of the way of obstacles. We are going to end up taking more levels in Barbarian, but we're going to make it a little detour after this. Remember, you can absolutely just have some weapons with you. You can have some hand axes or something like that you go and you make your attack action and then maybe even a bonus action attack if you're dual wielding. And you don't have to run people around and grapple them, right? You just have the option to be kind of a fast barbarian. Next, we're going Rogue. Rogue level 1 allows us to take expertise, and in expertise, we're going to take our athletics. Now we double our proficiency bonus for grapple checks, so now we're adding 7 to our athletics checks, and we have advantage on those checks. Average with advantage is, of course, going to be 15, so +7 is a 22 to grapple checks on average, and that's at 3rd level. Very potent and going nowhere but up as we go along. Of course, we're grabbing that 2nd level of Rogue, and we are getting Cunning Action. This is critical because our bonus action will now allow us to dash, which is also doubled by our feline agility. Remember, it doubles our movement speed, and the dash action lets you move your movement speed again. So if we have 30 feet of movement speed, we double that with feline agility to 60. We bonus action that to 120. That is at 4th level. And remember, if you move things around, if you avoid taking that 2nd level in Barbarian, you could have that at 3rd level if that's important. 3rd level is when spike growth will come online. So, damage report at 3rd level. Your friend lays down a 2nd level spike growth. You grapple a target. You have a very high chance of succeeding on that grapple. You run them to the spike growth, and you run them across it. If you have 120 feet of movement speed, that gets halved by grappling a target to 60 feet of movement. 60 feet across spike growth is going to be 60 damage, but we can go higher.
Guys, I can go faster.
Do it.
Moving out of Rogue, there is always the choice to take Scout. I'm going to keep that choice on the table for you in the audience. The Scout Rogue has this ability where if an enemy ends their turn within 5 feet of you, you can use your reaction to move half your movement speed. Of course, if your movement speed is getting super buffed up by all of these things, then you'll move pretty far away. A lot of these things are more in terms of like active abilities that you have to trigger on your turn. So you're never going to be able to move like 60 feet away as a reaction with the scout ability. But I do think it's very flavorful for a speedster to like, the enemy gets to you and then zip, you zip away, and then they get to you and zip, you zip away, and like you're kind of like untouchable. I'm sure I'll put a clip in. There's just no room in these 10 levels that I'm going to squeeze in a fun, flavorful level. Maybe as a capstone. So we have to return to Barbarian because we have important work to do. We are going to get our 3rd level in Barbarian. This is going to be character level 5, and we are going to take the Totem Warrior. Not, as you might expect, for the bear, because we already have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing, and we are not necessarily a frontlining character. No, we are going to take the Elk, which says, while you are raging and aren't wearing heavy armor, your walking speed increases by 15 feet. So, our 30 feet of movement just became 45 feet of movement, which, with feline agility, is 90 feet of movement, which, with the bonus action, cunning action, is going to be 180 feet of movement. But remember, you can do cunning action every turn. You can do feline agility every other turn. And this is just a passive bonus to movement speed while raging. So this is very sustainable for you to go grapple target, shred them, go grapple target, shred them, go grapple target, shred them. You can be, every turn, zipping over, dragging someone through spike growth, and killing them. Main limitation is you may not be able to grapple a given target. So for our 4th level in Barbarian, we are going to boost our strength. That +1 might seem like much, but I think it is critical to make sure that you are grabbing your targets so that you're not wasting your turns. And to that effect as well, level 5 Barbarian, multi-attack. So now you can attempt to grapple twice. You're allowed to take the grapple as a special kind of attack. You get 2 attacks on your turn, so you can grapple. If that doesn't work, you can grapple. At character level 5, our proficiency bonus went to 3, so we are adding +10, because of expertise, to our athletics checks, and then doing them with advantage while raging. This means that we have, on average, a 25 to our grapples. And we get 2 tries at it. Maybe you grapple on the first attack. You run them through spike growth, using some of your 90 feet of movement speed, and they die. You can then use your second attack to grapple someone else and run them through the spike growth with any remaining speed that you've got. So that overkill all of a sudden might not even be enough to kill, for instance, 2 trolls or something if you are grappling them. Don't forget as well, at 5th level in Barbarian, we get fast movement. Starting at 5th level, your speed increases by 10 feet while you aren't wearing heavy armor. So 45 feet has gone to 55 feet, which if we dash is going to 110 feet, which if we do the cat stuff goes to 220 feet of movement. Halved by grappling a target, 110 feet. Remember, we should have a wizard who could cast haste on us. Here's what that would do for us. Haste gives you an additional action. Probably you're using this additional action to dash, increasing your movement further. Also, haste says when you cast this on a target during their turn, their movement is doubled. This does not say your dash action is doubled or something like that. Your movement is doubled. So 55 becomes 110. With our cat stuff, that becomes 220. We can dash as a bonus action. We can dash as a haste action for 660 feet of movement. Turns out the best example of this technique is from the boys, and I can't show you the whole clip because it is gnarly. And again, that's just a regular second level spike growth, regular third level haste. You are all working together, but that's really, really good. So everything else that you pile onto this is gravy. But we're going to go for gravy because we love gravy. No spells. We're done with Rogue. We're done with Barbarian. Level 8. We are going to take Fighter. Fighter 1 is going to give us a fighting style. Choose whatever you want to. Potentially you could get unarmed fighting if you wanted to, or if you do still have your hand axes with you, you could potentially do 2-weapon fighting. You're often using your bonus action to dash, but it's always an option. It wouldn't necessarily be bad to take protection. You are hypothetically wearing a shield on one arm the entire time, in which case you can help prevent damage to allies if they happen to end their turn close to you. Regardless, the main thing that we're getting here is Second Wind, which is going to be our little Speed Force regeneration rate that we're manifesting here. For level 9, we are going to take Action Surge. Now, Action Surge is going to give us an additional action once per short rest. So, on our burst turn, when we see this enemy that has some ungodly number of hit points, we can grapple them. Our proficiency bonus is up to 4, which means we are adding 12 to our athletics checks with an average of 15 from advantage. That means our average grapple is 27. Average grapple. We can then take them with your Totem of the Elk active, with your fast movement employed, with Long Strider perhaps cast on you by the wizard in your party, if you have haste on you and a spike growth down, which is not guaranteed every time, but will be a pretty doable series of circumstances. You will have a total movement of 65, times 2 is 130, times 2 is 260. 260 plus a bonus action dash, plus an action surge dash, plus a haste action dash, 1,040 feet. This is probably the over 1,000 number that Chris was talking about in his video. But of course we do have to divide it to grapple, so 520 damage, which I think is plenty for a single target. So what you're going to want to do is find the highest health large creature in the game. That is going to be Sulkatesh, which is kind of a weird example because I'm pretty sure she has the ability to cancel out magical effects like spike growth. Now, Sulkatesh is a CR 28 creature with 475 hit points. Easy for you to run up, grab Sulkatesh, her addition to, let's say, acrobatics is +5, which means she's going to average of 15 or 16 on that grapple. You are, of course, averaging 27. You're going to make that grapple approximately 85% of the time. You're going to take Sulkatesh, run her through the spikes until she is dead. Probably grab up to 4 people, depending on rationing those actions, right? While still having enough movement speed to burn them down to nothing. Truly incredible. So that's mostly the build, but we do have that 10th level. I have a couple different recommendations for this, depending on how your campaign is working. 1, you could go Rune Knight Fighter. Rune Knight Fighter is going to give you the ability to kind of enter into this big mode. And when you're in big mode, you can grapple people who are even larger, right? You become large, which means you can grapple huge. If you're up against a bunch of giants, you are going to need this in order to do the plan. You can't grapple people who are much larger than you are, and you really need to grapple them for any of this to work. So that's a very strong option. Another option is to go Battlemaster Fighter. Battlemaster Fighter will allow you to get Grappling Strike as a maneuver, which means once you make a weapon attack against that creature, you can also grapple them. So you don't need to forego the weapon damage in order to do that. It's pretty minor compared to the spike growth. I mean, frankly, you're probably only doing like 8 to 10 damage on a hit with like an axe or something like that, especially if it's a one-handed axe. But you add 20 damage to your repertoire. You also would get the evasive footwork maneuver, which says when you move, you can roll a superiority die and add it to your armor class while moving. This might be critical if you're in a large pack of enemies who are all going to get opportunity attacks against you as you're running around this spike growth field, right? Certainly, it depends on context, right? But you can imagine that being useful. There's nothing here that gives your movement the ability to avoid opportunity attacks, so it's worth considering. And the last one, of course, is that scout archetype, right? That scout third level in Rogue that would allow you to move your movement speed if someone, half your movement speed if someone ends their turn next to you. This means that you would be pretty much impossible to come after, right? As enemies would get to you, they'd make their attacks, and then you would zip away and not be accessible to them the next round. But you are probably going to move anyway. It's just a fun, flavorful speedster activity that you could have and that you could do. Overall, I would recommend the Rune Knight because that opens you up to a larger category of creatures. But let me know what you would do in the comments with this build. Do you like the speedster? Do you think it would be useful at your table? Thank you so much, guys. I'm excited to see what Treant Monk does for his build, and I will see you next week.